I think he's the direct descendant to Tom Brady, just from a stylistic perspective and who he is as a person and a leader and a player. All right, so every year I do a quarterback poll, and I've been doing this for close to 10 years now, going back to my time at NFL Network to try to project the end of the season. Now, where my quarterback poll is a little bit different than a lot of the other ones out there is I ask on the doorstep of the season, I'll send out over 100 texts for who guys think the top five quarterbacks are going to be not in week one or week two, but at the very end of the year. I go to all the quarterback adjacent people, GMs, head coaches, offensive coordinators, pass game coordinators, pro scouting directors, directors of player personnel, assistant GMs, everybody who in some way evaluates quarterbacks can be part of this. And generally, I'll get 70, 80 ballots back. And this year's results are actually pretty interesting in that some things have shifted a little bit. And to set the stage, I'll give you my top six from 21, 22, and 23, and then we can discuss the changes a little bit, and I'll unveil the top six that I have right now with 83 ballots in. We haven't finished counting everything, but 83 ballots in and a very clear top six emerging. In 2021 was Mahomes 1, Rodgers 2, Allen 3, Brady 4, Wilson 5, Stafford 6. In 22, it was Mahomes 1, Allen 2, Rodgers 3, Herbert 4, Burrow 5, Brady 6. And then in 2023, last year, it was for the third straight year Mahomes 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3, Herbert 4, Rodgers 5, and Jalen Hurts 6. So there are names from last year that fell off the list. Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts all got support, but none of those three guys are in the top six. And I think when you look at where this list is and how it's evolved, you'll see how people are expecting big things from certain quarterbacks. So we'll start with the sixth ranked quarterback. That is Matthew Stafford of the Rams. He makes the list again after falling out in 22 and not making it in 23. He made it before his first year with the Rams in 21. He was sixth then. He is a clear cut sixth now. He is well above seventh place. He is well below fifth place. And I think people look at what Matthew Stafford did last year with a great amount of respect. He came out of the 22 season with the elbow injury and without Cooper Kupp for much of that year. And with some moving pieces, the Rams ate around $80 million in cap space. One of the largest numbers in league history, which meant about a third of their roster on the salary cap, or a third of their salary cap was accounted for with guys that weren't on the team anymore. And he was able to lift guys up around him. I think part of that respect for a quarterback is always, are you a guy who the team is winning with, or are you a guy the team is winning because of? I think more than maybe any point in his career last year, Matthew Stafford showed that he was very much a member of that rarefied second group, the group of quarterbacks that you win because of. And with Cooper Kupp coming back and healthier than he's been the last couple of years, with Puka Nacua going into year two, with Kyron Williams now being joined by Blake Corum in the backfield, and the team spending on interior offensive linemen and Kevin Dotson coming over from Pittsburgh and Jonah Jackson coming over from the Lions, you can see where big things are expected of the Rams, who now go into the season with a clean ledger on the salary cap side, with a full complement of draft picks both this year and next year. It looks like the Rams are back on the way up. They've got the flexibility to take a big swing if they want to, and their quarterback is in a really good spot. In fifth place, and this is a new name, one that wouldn't have made the list last year because he hadn't played NFL football yet, and that's CJ Stroud, the quarterback of the Texans. Across the board, the way that people were impressed with the way CJ Stroud played really stuck out in doing this poll. And just like Stafford, he's well clear of the guy below him. He's well behind the guy ahead of him. So very clear cut fifth place finisher here, well above Stafford at sixth, well below the top four. But again, I think this shows a lot of respect for the job that CJ Stroud did last year. And, it's a vote of confidence in the situation the Texans have been able to accomplish for him. Laramie Tunsil anchors that line at left tackle, one of the better offensive lines in all of football. They bring in Joe Mixon, who obviously has been a bell cow in the past with the Bengals. And then you look at what they've got at the other skill positions. Dalton Schultz was a real security blanket for CJ Stroud at tight end. And then the receiver group. Tank Dell back healthy again, had a fantastic rookie year. Nico Collins broke out in year three. Now going into year four, he's locked up long term. And they bring in Stephon Diggs. And one thing I really like about what the Texans did is they brought in number one guys, right? Like, and what I mean by that is they're not taking somebody else's number two and projecting them to be a number one. Both on defense and offense, they brought in number one guys. They brought in Joe Mixon with a lot of experience being a number one back. They brought in Stephon Diggs, a lot of experience being a number one receiver. And they brought in Daniil Hunter, who's got a lot of experience on the defensive side being a number one pass rusher. All of it, I think, puts CJ Stroud in a great position to avoid a sophomore slump. And by the numbers here, most of the league is expecting him to avoid that sophomore slump as well. All right, in fourth place. And this is a guy who has not been in the top six the last 3 years, who maybe hasn't gotten the respect that he deserves, who now is. And it's the two-time most valuable player of the NFL, Lamar Jackson. He was sort of in a cluster, in the 2 through 4 cluster there, guys that were relatively close vote-wise. He finishes in fourth place, wound up on a lot of ballots, wound up in second place on a lot of ballots. Specifically, he, I think, earned the respect of the coaches, the evaluators across the NFL with how he evolved as a passer. We were always well aware. Everyone was always well aware of what he could do as a runner. He's a great athlete. He's an effective runner. He, for the most part, has been able to avoid having constant injury problems. He had some issues, of course, in 21 and 22, but was able to avoid that in 24 and generally has done a good job of avoiding injury issues as an NFL player. And like again, like what Todd Monken was able to bring to their passing game, what they were able to do in the passing game, how he's able to bring young guys like Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely along, earned him a lot of respect in the NFL. So he finished place. It's his highest finish in the last few years. I'd have to look back before and see how he did in 20 and 19. But certainly after falling out of the top six in 21, 22, and 23, he's very firmly in the top six, finishing fourth place this time around. At number three, this is a guy who has been in the top three now 4 years in a row, and that's Josh Allen. I don't think there's any question now about what Josh Allen is as a player. I talked about that thing about winning because of, like, who are the quarterbacks you win because of? You're not just winning with them. And Josh Allen has shown the ability to be that sort of player with all that he can do. And they're going to be asking him to do that this year in Buffalo. Khalil Shakir likely moves into a bigger role as their slot receiver. Dalton Kincaid, they're going to ask more of him as their first round pick from 2023. How quickly can they get Keon Coleman ramped up? Josh Allen also loses his center, the pivot man on the offensive line, Mitch Morris. There are a lot of moving parts. They're going to be relying on a lot of young players. That means more on Josh Allen. And based on how the voting went here, most people expect that he's going to be up to the task. Second place for the second straight year and in the top six for the third straight year is Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. I don't think there's any question about what Joe Burrow is when he's healthy. Health is the biggest question. I think that's why he's a little closer to third and fourth place than he was a year ago when he was a very clear second place. Questions on how he's going to come back from the wrist are out there. Based on what I've seen and what I've heard, I think he's going to be going into the year, but it's fair to ask the questions about his health based on the issues he's had over the course of his career, whether it was the ACL, the appendicitis was a little bit different, but he had the calf last year. And then, of course, the wrist that ended his 2023 season. I think he's the direct descendant to Tom Brady, just from a stylistic perspective and who he is as a person and a leader and a player. Like, I think he's the closest thing to Brady there is in the league. Again, based on style, not like necessarily production yet, but based on style and how he plays the game and how he sees the game. And again, if he can stay healthy, then, I think he's a very solid second place. Even with the injury questions, he winds up coming second in our poll. And that leads us to first place. And there wasn't any question about this. The gap is wider than it's been in recent years. He had almost, when I last counted this, double the vote total. And just so you know, the way I count the votes, ask everybody for their top 5 points for first, 4 points for second, and so on. To have almost double the amount of points that anyone else had is pretty staggering, but that's where Patrick Mahomes is. He's in first place on almost every ballot, first or second on every ballot. He's earned it. He's won 3 Super Bowls. He's the best quarterback in football, bar none. The other guys, his peers, have deferred to him on that. You've even heard Joe Burrow say it, that Pat's the guy until somebody knocks him off. And to win 2 straight Super Bowls after the team traded away Tyreek Hill, to win Super Bowls with all the moving parts they've had on the offensive line and the skill positions in general over the last few years. There was no question for me going in who was going to win this thing. There's no question coming out who did win it. It's resounding. Patrick Mahomes, once again, the king of NFL quarterbacks and the guy that most executives and coaches expect to finish the 2024 season as the best quarterback in all football. Again, no surprise. It'll be exciting to see how all of this plays out. You can check out a little bit of a more thorough look at how the vote went on Thursday morning over at SI.com.